Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel on finding your path to your best emotional and physical health. My name is Erin and I'm here to bring you tips and tricks on how to achieve long-lasting health and energy both mentally and physically. So if you like what you hear, please hit subscribe and hit the thumbs up and share this information with anybody that you can, because I want this information to get out as much as possible. Also, don't forget to download my 5 free videos with some quick tips on how to improve your overall physical and mental health. And today's topic is the last, with the exception of a question and answer series, in our series on prevention of cognitive decline and some of the things that we can do to kind of slow that or be aware of what goes on in our brain as we age. So I want to kind of bring you that, and then we'll kind of set up a question and answer session. So please, if you have anything that you're interested in or want me to look up or want to join me for the live question and answer, please message me either through the website or through the comments so that I can get those questions answered for you. So without further ado, I wanted to talk just briefly about some of the things that we can do to continue to stimulate our brain. Previously, we thought the brain actually stopped developing approximately age 25, and while it may stop growing at that age, it doesn't stop kind of making neural connections. And it's the old adage, if you don't use it, you lose it. And that's actually true, because our brain also prunes back things that it doesn't need. So if you're not using certain things, you kind of lose the ability to do those things. So like if you're not a visual spatial puzzle person, you may lose some of that ability over time. But the beauty of it is you actually can bring that back by increasing your practice of those activities. One of the things that I always tell people who are working maybe with or watching their grandchildren, when they come into me and they're in their 50s or 60s and they are watching grandchildren as part of their day-to-day life, I tell, and they're young, kindergarten, preschool, and they're doing those kinds of fun things, I tell them, do these activities with them, do the blocks, do the puzzles, do whatever, because there's a reason why we do those things in early childhood development. So all you early childhood educators out there are doing a great job developing the brain. But we can use those same techniques to kind of maintain and redevelop things that we maybe have lost over time. So stick with me here on a couple other things that we could do as we age that are kind of fun, and we'll kind of meet two different categories a lot of the times. There's a really big push to finding a purpose. A lot of times people kind of get stuck in a rut, and we see a lot of increase of depression as people get older, and I think a lot of that is related to lack of purpose. Once they've raised their children, and maybe they're not helping with the grandchildren, and then they feel like, what's the point other than watching TV or just kind of sitting around, maybe reading. Some of those things are great, but having a purpose where you're giving back to the community and engaging with others is so important, not just for our aging and our cognitive decline, but just our mental health in general. We have a very tendency to lose track of people with today's social media, especially because of this pandemic. We've been told to isolate, and we really haven't begun to see the fallout of the mental and emotional stuff of that isolation and the limiting of our social network to a very small number of people, but that will be coming. So we need to kind of monitor that. So I always encourage people to find a purpose and figure out what they really like to do, whether it be their family or volunteer work or learning about something. We're going to get into that too, because even if you have a purpose, you want to also do some learning as well. So once we've left work or retired, this becomes a big risk. It's interesting how retirement actually is one of the things that's a risk for cognitive decline, because we're not working our brain in the same ways that we used to. So we need to develop different ways to do that. So that leads me to the next one, which I kind of mentioned earlier, was learning, trying to learn all the time. People think that, oh, I can't learn a new language or I can't learn a new skill when I'm older, but that's not true. Most of us can. There's sometimes some challenges we have to work around, like you might say, well, I've always wanted to learn how to knit, but you have pretty severe arthritis in your hands. You still can learn how to knit, but it might be a little bit of a challenge, and you might not be able to do it quite as often as you'd like to. You start to see other things like, adult coloring, painting, all kinds of things like that people start to engage in, especially crafts, as they age, because who cares if it doesn't turn out? You're just trying to learn a skill and learn to do something a little bit differently. My mother, who's in her 70s, is into crafting, and she likes to make cards, is what she's doing lately, but she's done other stuff as well. So she'll come up with something, and she's a little bit of a perfectionist. So once she starts doing that, she continues to practice until she gets really good at it. And then usually by the next year, she's on to something else that she wants to do. So that's how she kind of stays engaged in that kind of stuff. Languages are good. People even say learn a new instrument. I think that's rather daunting. I had a hard time learning a musical instrument the first time around, but sometimes I wonder, what would it be like if I went back to playing the piano like I used to years ago, or something else like that, to kind of get that kind of mind active and going. I do try to learn some language stuff and kind of work on that, but that can also take some time, and I lose it pretty quickly if I'm not using it. Another great one is just music in general. Either you're playing an instrument or listening to music. It works several different parts of the brain, so that's why it's pretty valuable. And it's also gets you to move more. So that goes back to the exercise one. So we want people to dance and do those kinds of things and get us kind of going a little bit more. They've actually found that partner dancing especially is actually one of the greatest things to stimulate both sides of the brain and prevent cognitive decline. So that's one of my favorites to engage in, is to kind of keep that going, because you got the social aspect of it, and then you also have the bilateral movement working both sides of the brain that actually help that. Another things that you can kind of work on, and you see more of this out there if you don't have a hobby or you can't afford some of those things, and you've got other things that you can consider, like a lot of people do games, but sometimes they get stuck on certain games and not more variety. So like word searches are great for your scanning ability, but they don't necessarily allow you to work on some other skills. So you could do word searches and Sudoku and crosswords. All of those things are helpful to our brain and in maintaining that kind of cognitive status. There's also starting to be a lot of apps out there and online things that help us work with brain training, and they call it entrainment these days, and kind of stimulate all these different parts of the brain. Some have studies that support them, some don't. I just encourage people to try things that you think you'll enjoy, because that's better than nothing. And maybe it's not proven for everyone, but maybe it'll work for you, because the crux of the matter is if you continue to do it and stick with it. So it doesn't matter how good something is. If you don't stick with it, it's not going to work at all anyway. So it's important to pick something that you enjoy. So with that, I don't have anything else to tell you about today, but I might come up with something later that I need to add. So hang in there with me. If you have any questions, please connect with me. If you think you need to make some changes in your life and you need a little coaching and support and guidance, because it can be a little overwhelming, all of these things, please connect with me on the website and set up some time, and we'll make sure we get you taken care of. So thanks, and have a great day.